and the Republicans all around the United States who believe that our government is borrowing and spending way too much money, and we have to cut this thing.
That's a pretty big word because Lee Cook's got, he's going to have the Illinois GOP behind him, the federal law stuff behind him. He's going to have money to spend. Right now, you're at about $600. What's your strategy to counteract that?
It's by having conversations with you in open, frank, transparent manners. It's grassroots, and unfortunately, the algorithm doesn't favor me. It literally create as much content as you can, connect with as many people as you can, and really getting on the ground in Rockford and Peoria. The number one goal of this campaign right now is to get 1,000 signatures on our petitions.
Sure.
So I'm pretty confident over the next 3 weeks on Fridays and Saturdays in Rockford and in Peoria, we'll be able to get the number of signatures to get on the ballot in March.
Don't forget to hit the metro stations in your district. Those are great places to harvest the voters from. Let's go back to the hood real quick. You call him a rhino, which is become almost cliche at this point. Everyone's a rhino is running against someone else. When we look at him, though, his voting record isn't. You got to see eye to eye on some stuff. What is it you're not seeing eye to eye on with him that caused you to run here?
Really, it was his go-team response. If you do a cross comparison between open secrets and all acts that he has voted on, it's not a 10% or an 80% correlation. It is a 100% correlation between all open secrets donors and all HR acts. So there's a 100% correlation between HR acts and lobbyists who are essentially paying him to vote for all these funding measures. And it started with the HEROES Act and the CARES Act. The amazing thing about Grok on X is you can use it to go through all the HR acts and identify by the largest acts and whether LaHood voted on it, and then who the Fortune 500 corporations are that receive the most amount of money through those acts. And there's a 100% correlation in open secrets with all his donors. He has over $12 million or over $10 million in his campaign account. And so in my opinion, he's running a skimming operation. And this is what a lot of Congress people are doing. They have 10 to 20 to 30 million in their checking account, all given by lobbyists. So that is primarily the reason why I want to wake people up in 16th district. Say, hey, he has created $20 trillion in debt plus $5 trillion a year over 10 years. He's responsible for spending $70 trillion. What if the people in Illinois District 16 really got anything from LaHood for all those trillions of dollars? He likes to say it's all about jobs at Caterpillar, etc. So, in my opinion, he's wasting the money. We have to stop borrowing and spending, and that's why I'm running against Aaron LaHood in 16th district.
And deference to your campaign too, some of those jobs he talks about didn't really appear. You look at what happened with Stellantis; they only got one with a fraction of those jobs coming back. So it might be good to have someone holding his feet to the fire.
It goes to show you that it is very difficult to create a successful business. I've launched many different businesses, and you can borrow from the taxpayers and create these businesses that go out of business, like Fisker and the electric buses that Pritzker gave us.
Yeah.
So it's super hard to create a business, and when the government creates a business by borrowing and taxing, that's not the bedrock or the cornerstone for building a good business. They're set up to fail. And it puts all the debt on future taxpayers. So it's
that's not
an unfair bargain.
No. What did you do in the? You're in the Army National Guard. What did you do there? I know you're an officer, so it's a little different. I'm not looking for.
Sure. So I can tell you, I went to the Citadel, which is a prestigious military school in Charleston, South Carolina. And while I was there, 9/11 happened. So I joined the Army National Guard in what they call the simultaneous membership program. So I started out as a PFC, then a specialist, then a sergeant in the infantry. And so I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, practiced warfighting for 4 months in the forces of Georgia, graduated college, got commissioned in intelligence, and I worked in translations, interrogations.
Oh.
The Army is Army work. That's digging trenches, fighting, and being in cities. I didn't deploy to Afghanistan or Iraq. I was all around the United States. And then I started working in digital communications. I think from a forensic accounting standpoint, let alone just AI and the queries that I have put into Grok, if you go to my X account, it's John Kitover, Illinois, that's IL, and I will retweet some of my best Grok queries trying to untangle congressional borrowing and spending, borrowing from the Federal Reserve, really looking at our ledger books, our balance statements, and saying, you know what, guys like Darren LaHood are kicking the can down the road over and over. 10 years now. So this is background, but I'm really trying to stop the borrowing and the spending. I think it has to become a mantra with Republicans. I'm standing with Thomas Massey, Rand Paul, Ron Paul. I supported the Ron Paul campaign from California. I have a good picture with him. And I just believe that we are digging a hole. We have to stop digging this hole of debt and borrowing and spending from the Federal Reserve. My campaign. So that means Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, Pfizer, Moderna, J&J, AstraZeneca, hundreds of billions of dollars in tax credits that they got from the big beautiful bill, $500 billion a year from taxpayers in tax credits. That is the primary focus of my campaign.
You segued exactly where I want to go. I was just going to ask about the big beautiful bill. That was a huge expansion of spending. So I think you pretty much told us where you stand on that. You weren't exactly pro big beautiful bill then.
We can kill the two biggest problems in our society, which is the military-industrial complex and big pharma. We have to cut the Medicare and Medicaid by probably $1 billion to $2 billion a year, and the National Defense Authorization Act by about $200 to $400 billion a year. We'll be able to start paying down the debt. We can lower taxes, and we can stop funding big pharma, which is poisoning us, and the military-industrial complex, which is taxing us and doing military policing around the world. And Darren LaHood has kicked the can and funded this for 10 years. He's been a congressman in the 16th district, I think the connecting district before redistricting. But he is a can kicker. I'm going to crush his can and I'm going to recycle it for the American people and for the people in the state of Illinois.
Let's talk about vaccinations. I'm not real clear on where you are on vaccinations as far as if it's just a COVID vaccine or if you're, what you stand on other vaccines.
Let me just start with COVID-19 and that vaccine response. The HEROES Act in March of 2020 was the first $1 trillion tranche or omnibus bill that Darren LaHood voted for. And that is the start of it. That's when Pfizer was able to print up 30 billion cocktails. A lot of these vaccines were manufactured in India because it was a patent and it was mass produced around the world.
Yeah.
That's not variable medicine. That's giving one solution to everybody for a problem that Dr. Fauci and Bill Gates and the World Health Organization cooked up in Wuhan, China. So to just immediately go to the 72 vaccine schedule that young people have to take, we are living in a vaccine industrial complex. It's not a vaccine diet. This is not acute targeted medicine. This isn't variable. This morning on X, we read through MAHA and the February 18-page PDF was put out by Secretary Kennedy and the NIH. And I think right now, Big Pharma and Kennedy are still colliding, and the gold standard in scientific research has yet to really been proven. I think we're still very much living in a big pharma, big medical industrial complex, which demands the money. And so again, cutting Medicare and Medicaid will choke big pharma, and I think it'll improve our health outcomes. I'm not a fan of all these vaccinations. It's out of control. But why does a 3-year-old need 72 injections? Can you explain that, George? It's insane what we're living with.
I am a nurse, so I can't explain it. These are all diseases we're trying to keep that 3-year-old from having. My grandkids are getting vaccinated now. My children got vaccinated. We had no health problems from those vaccines. I can see why people were upset about on the COVID vaccine because it was, again, I said I was a nurse. One thing we were taught is always the patient's choice whether they take a medicine or they don't. They had COVID jammed down their throat, so I get the anger there. But I never really quite, and yeah, I go back as a conservative a long way. I'm almost 60 now. I never ran for Congress. I was a city councilman in Georgia. So I've been involved in Republican politics for a long time. I don't think anyone would say anything other than a conservative. But the things like eliminating smallpox has gone a long way. We couldn't do that without those vaccines. The chicken pox, people live through that. My grandkids are getting, I believe my kids are getting rid of the chicken pox. I don't think it's hurting anyone. It's keeping them from scarring and later, and protecting from shingles a little bit later. But
I would just say that I've seen documentation from the George Bush administration that suggests that Operation Warp Speed was long in the making. I think this is a pandemic, scamdemic, plandemic. I don't trust it. The lockdowns, the baby diaper masks. People are very angry still. And when you bring up COVID-19 vaccines and the lockdown, Darren LaHood told his constituents via X, if you don't take this injection, this pandemic will never end. You have to get vaccinated. Otherwise, you'll never be able to go back to work. That's the type of messaging he put out on his X account. You can search it. Just go to Darren LaHood's X account, type in vaccine, and see what he told everybody. He was doing propaganda messaging, pushing out big pharma talking points. That's not leadership. That's doing what your lobbyist, multi-million-dollar contributors tell you to do. And he's telling everybody on his X account, his Facebook account with 27,000 followers. In my opinion, he's pushing propaganda, and he voted for it. And he took out he took out trillions of loans on your behalf to fund this. We're $37 trillion in debt. We have $100 trillion in unfunded debt liabilities. That's a total of $137 trillion. So everybody in this country owes over $100,000 right now to the federal government and the balance sheet. And Darren LaHood doesn't talk about it. All he talks about is how the big beautiful bill is so beautiful. It's not beautiful. It's taxation by loading it on the back end. So in my opinion, he is not leading the people in his district, and he's a failure as a congressional representative in the 16th district. And in Illinois, he's just a can kicker. And I just want to reiterate, everyone has to chant the mantra, stop borrowing, stop spending.
That is good to hear it came in the state, because we go back into what some people call the bipartisan combine. Everyone's just taxing and spending. There really has not been a responsible financial party for a very long time. And it's good to hear people coming up through the ranks and running for office saying, yeah, we got to stop this, because it's not sustainable. You're absolutely right on that. I'm curious too. You went right for a congressional seat. Generally, people coming up through the ranks will say, "Oh, you're going to start at city council. You'll start at the county board. You'll start at the township level." You went right for Congress. Mostly, it seems to be because the job there LaHood's doing. Did you have any thought about starting lower and working up, or was this just you're passionate about ending LaHood's reign in Congress?
Let me just say, this is not the second time I've run for politics. I ran for committee person here in the 45th Ward in Chicago, and that is what created this rocket that is trying to defeat Darren LaHood, because that experience of dealing with all kinds of low-down, dirty, grimy local politicians and the lawyers and let me just describe to you what happened.
Yes,
so I ran for committee person. I spent about 45 days at the Jefferson Park Blue Line stop. I hired people off of Craigslist. We gathered about 800 signatures. Every single signature was challenged by the Chicago GOP. We were about 60 signatures short. But I filed an appeal. I had to go downtown, go through the election courts, had about 2 trials. The challenger, Estella Richards, the 45th Ward committee woman, never showed up. She couldn't provide any testimony, wouldn't provide any testimony in terms of questioning. So in my opinion, my constitutional rights were denied me, and this deals with ballot access.
Right.
I have no doubt that this time going around, we will get the total number of signatures to actually be on the ballot. It's less than 700.
Right.
And let me tell you, when you file for Congress, it only takes you 15 minutes to file. So my question is, where are the patriots and the Republicans in Peoria and Rockford that want to stand up to all this borrowing and spending? Where are the libertarians even that are not stepping up to the plate? A lot of people aren't getting anything for their vote, but they're still going to vote for Darren LaHood.
Yeah.
This is why I decided to run for Congress, because the issue is that important, that this is not just whether or not I win or get on the ballot. This is about creating communication to as many people as possible to recite the mantra. Stop borrowing, stop spending. Every single year, we're borrowing $2 trillion and only taking in $5 trillion. So this is why I'm running and why we have to defeat Darren LaHood in Illinois 16.
This is the old Illinois GOP mantra. It's not your turn yet, right? This is why no one's running, is they go up through their county GOP and they're told it's not your turn. Or in your case, I'm sure you were told, start smaller, start at the township level, start this. Of course, the Chicago GOP is so completely dysfunctional, maybe they didn't tell you that. But this is the same thing I hear over and over again as I talk to candidates, that being told, it's not your turn.
Listen, it's everybody's turn. There should be 100 people lining up when there's no filing fee. It takes you 15 minutes. And now there's another Republican candidate running, and I think there's 4 Democrats running against Darren LaHood. So people are waking up and standing up. Darren LaHood really flies under the radar, but he has a very powerful position in Congress. So in my opinion, the more people standing up to Darren LaHood, either we force him to start obeying their constitution and get dishonest, and I think we have to crush his can that he keeps kicking.
Let's switch up for a little bit. Let's talk about the district you're running for. district runs, you're in Chicago, it's in Peoria, it's in Rockford.
It's wisdom and education. So I think I've spent a lot of time doing a lot of yoga, reading a lot of books, going to the gym. For me, preparing for this moment, it's the now. So I feel like my whole life, the destiny has led up to running against Darren Hood in the 16th district. And to me, all the racial identity politics, there's a lot of ways to be political. I would say that the national debt is a way to be political. Vaccines are a way to be political. Abortion is a way to be political. I can name 10 to 100 other ways that one can be political. And so really to me, it's wisdom education, reading scripture, reading sacred texts that point out eternal truths, universal truths amongst all of us. So when somebody does a racial identity political attack or brings it up in the discourse, I just consider it spam and political. If I was to pull out my Bible flashcards here and read you a bunch of sacred scripture, you could say that's being political, but I would also add that it's education in terms of wisdom. That is the only real true response I have to people who want to do racial identity politics.
All right, so you touched on your big issues are the immunizations and the budget. What else would your term in Congress focus on outside of those two issues?
I thought, meditated on this, if you were the leader of a tribe, what would you want for the people in your tribe? Or if you're a congressperson or a president or the leader of a business, it's primarily, you do not see in Darren Hood's X account, he never talks about his constituents' property taxes. He doesn't talk about their income taxes. He talks about, hey, I don't want you to be able to file for free with the IRS, so I'm going to get rid of that so H&R Block and Tax Pro can keep charging you another $200 to $300 a year to file. So this is the issue, is lowering Illinois and District 16 property taxes, lowering their income taxes, and lowering their public debt and their private debt. Those would be four issues that I would want to look out for if I was the leader of the 16th district as a congressperson in terms of, I want to lower your property taxes, lower your income taxes, lower your public debt, which is the national debt at $37 trillion, as well as the state of Illinois, and also lower your private debt. Now, if that means lower interest rates, that means asking Chairman Powell politely to lower the rate from 4 to 7% down to 1%.
Yeah.
So it's all artificial. We're doing it to ourselves. We're stressing ourselves out. We're stressing, the system is stressed out, and therefore we are going to be more stressed out. But a lot of this is of our own making, and we are our own worst enemy. Again, Darren Hood voted for the HEROES Act, the CARES Act. I could read for my ex right now. I wanted to come more prepared with a lot more raw data. But if you go to John Kitover, Illinois, I will query and create more queries that I know people who watch this video will go to John Kitover, ILNX, follow me, and you can see a lot of these queries from the Treasury.gov. And data from his Wi-Fi lapel comes from Treasury.gov, straight from the Treasury API. So if you go to usdebtclock.org, they use a different API, but nonetheless, you can get a better picture of the financial Balance Sheet Act gives the Fortune 500 $500 billion a year in tax credits. That's all future tax liabilities for you. It's transferring it from the Fortune 500 to we the people. That's not why you're voting for Darren Hood, is it? I hope it's not, because if you are, you're voting for your own demise. We're giving ourselves away. The Declaration of Independence says they are eating out our substance. And in my opinion, Darren Hood is eating out the substance of America and the people in the 16th district. And Illinois politics is so corrupt. The people are so sleazy. It's taking a grassroots effort. A guy in Jefferson Park in the northwest side of Chicago to say no more borrowing and spending.
You talked about cuts. There were two you mentioned that I was specifically interested in. Cuts to Medicare, Medicaid. Let's not go with the old Medicaid, the older voter. And you also talked about cuts on defense. You talked about $400 million in cuts in defense. $400 billion. $4 billion, yeah. Where do you see these cuts coming from? What are we cutting to come up with these numbers?
So Medicare, Medicaid, the average amount per citizen spent is about $15,000 to $18,000. That money is going to health insurance and to large hospital providers and to administrative expenses like doctor salaries, nurse salaries, etc. It's almost $20,000 a person, and if you have advanced diseases and around 30 prescriptions, now you're talking about $60,000 a year, $160,000 a year. The point is, we have to take these two snakes that are drowning this nation in debt: big pharma and health insurance, and the military-industrial complex. We have to start choking these two snakes, otherwise the whole ship is going to sink into hyperinflation. By 2050, the United States government will be paying $4 trillion a year in interest on the national debt. And we're only taking in $5 trillion a year because of these two snakes. You can look at it like a rod of caduceus. You're a nurse, you've seen that. These are the two snakes choking our livelihood in this country. Everybody is on the hook for this money, but we keep kicking the can down the road. So we have to stop borrowing and stop spending.
But where are these cuts coming from? So you want to cut the feds for deployed all over the world. You're a veteran too. I hate to, my son's in the Marine Corps, I served in the Marine Corps. I hate to see cuts that are going to endanger people out there protecting us. And like I said, as far as Medicare cuts go, you got an uphill battle on that one because half the people are going to vote for you aren't going to like that. So what are you cutting there?
I just want to reiterate, my economic philosophical position deals with transparency and shedding light on the problems. We have to set priorities. If we want to have a lethal fighting force that is capable of going anywhere in the world to destroy our enemies and make them a terror against us, we have to set priorities. And if that means decommissioning or not building the next generation of aircraft carriers or fighter jets, we have to remember priorities. And if that means Fortune 500 corps, a lot of this is going to crush the stock market. I don't want to take the oil out of the engine. I want to essentially optimize the oil that we're using. We have to optimize our spend. This is like a game. This is essentially game theory. And unfortunately, we are at 40% of our economy is all based on borrowed money, borrowing and spending. That's not an authentic, transparent economy. So the sooner we actually get real and stop being children and say, hey, okay, a lot of this net profit is just because Congress is borrowing and spending through HR acts and the Federal Reserve. Chairman Powell said, we don't ask Congress for monetary advice and we don't give fiscal advice. Whatever Congress does is given, and we put it in our models. What kind of leadership response is that from the head of the Federal Reserve? Let's set some priorities and say, you know what? We have to optimize and be effective in our deployment, our spending. It's the way a business runs. When I was at the Treasury Department, I asked the senior leader, I said, are we allocating spending to locations where we know we're going to get a better ROI? Why are we building all these new offices if this area of the country has no good GDP? We need to go where, if you're going to tax, go where the money. It doesn't matter. We just got to spend and we got to spend. That's how they act. There's no optimization of our game theory as an economy. It's unpatriotic, and we're already $37 trillion in debt. Back in 2001, when 9/11 kicked off, we had $2 trillion in debt. That's manageable. $37 trillion is a crisis. And Chairman Powell says it's totally unsustainable. And in fact, he did a Freudian slip and he said it's unsustainable at the moment. And we're approaching that level where if Congress doesn't wise up and people don't start following Thomas Madison, Rand Paul, a lot of other Republicans in the Liberty Caucus, and a lot of libertarians are still very vocal about this. But you will not see Darren LaHood come on your podcast or ever put out any messaging about the national debt. He does not want you thinking about it.
Let's close on Social Security. Also unsustainable. So I call it a pyramid scheme. Any efforts to privatize any of it always fail. How do we fix that? Because whatever we want to do, and if you're in Congress, there's a chance there's going to start to collapse on you. So what are your thoughts on that?
So some people might not like this response because maybe it's not fiscally conservative enough, but Social Security is it's the second largest line item. I want to keep it 100% intact, but I want, as DOJ did, eliminate all the fraud, waste, and abuse in it, especially international fraud. There's still probably a lot of international deceivers and scammers ripping that system off. But again, if you look at the snake analogy of Medicare, Medicaid, the medical industrial complex, and the National Defense Authorization Act, and our military industrial complex, the middle pillar is really us. It is our Social Security. So Let's actually just enhance the program. If we take away from big military and big pharma, we can increase payouts to Social Security recipients who, at this point, are 100% involved in a Ponzi scheme. We're $37 trillion in debt, and we're paying over $1 trillion a year in interest to service that. Essentially, we have a $37 trillion mortgage. It costs us $1 trillion a year, and every year we keep adding $2 trillion to the 37.
Right.
So again, we have to start making cuts, and we have to start paying down the debt. But I say preserve Social Security, because that Ponzi scheme, you paid into it. Plus, you got to pay income taxes on the money you already paid in. So you're double tax, triple tax. You're taxed from every degree of reality. And that is not the way America was set up to be. We need to maximize liberty, maximize our freedom, and be fiscally conservative. We've gone through a 25-year war and then a big pandemic scandemic. After periods of warfare, you practice austerity. So this isn't a debt derangement syndrome rant. This is an American austerity syndrome that people need to start getting infected with, because if you're not part of the problem, you are literally plunging your children into forever debt. There's not going to be some debt jubilee. There's not going to be some doesn't forgive debt at the national levels. We owe this to China, Japan, the UK. We owe it to the Federal Reserve. So until people start reducing our income, stop borrowing, stop spending, and vote for John Kitover. Do not let Darren LaHood kick this can down the road any further. Hold him accountable. Demand a town hall and let him know your feelings about the COVID-19 mass vaccination, about the national debt. Let him know how you really feel about how he's representing you, and if he actually has your best interest at heart, or if he has him and his own family's best interest at heart. He's got over $10 million in his campaign checking from Blue Cross Blue Shield, from Canada, from Moderna, Pfizer, J&J, Comcast, Verizon, AT&T, everybody is giving to their money. And the last thing I want to say is LaHood gave us the broadband act, which is a $65 billion giveaway to Comcast, AT&T, Verizon. I want to hear one person in the 16th district that has ever gotten high-speed internet that they didn't already have it before, and that Darren LaHood didn't just give you a pile of debt and taxes out of that.
I think you're going to be hard for us to find that person. I think we're pretty okay on broadband, but I in this area, all right, ladies and gentlemen, that was John Kitover, congressional candidate. I had a great time talking to him today. We'll have you back as you pass the primary. Good luck on your petitions. And what do you have to say on the way out? What's your elevator pitch to our watchers?
If you live in Rockford, if you live in Peoria, if you live in Bloomington, Normal, Pekin, Belvedere, Loves Park, Mackenzie Park, East Peoria, Morton, Washington, Dixon, Morris, Shanahan, Streeter, Pontiac, Roscoe, Harvard, Rashad, South Beloit, or Rockton, go to johnforcongress.com, that's with a 4, or text the campaign at 312-498-0517, that's 312-498-0517, or go to johnforcongress.com and leave the campaign. Get your signature on our petition. And we have to get 1,000 signatures within the next 2 weeks. And I hope that this video goes viral. I will push it out across all my platforms. And I'm also going to take our campaign contributions that we've raised, and I'm going to run this video as an advertisement in your town, in Rockford, in Peoria, through Google, YouTube. So if you want to donate, you want this message of liberty and fiscal conservatism and anti-mRNA spike proteins in you every single turn that Bill Gates wants you to eat spike proteins, basically. So I'm trying to mix in a little comedy, but I hope people are resonating with the message that we have to stop borrowing and spending. It's what's causing all of these problems. And we're $37 trillion in debt. We have a $37 trillion mortgage with a $1 trillion annual interest payment. You didn't sign up for that when you voted for Darren LaHood, and he's going to keep giving it to you. So I need your help. I need your support. Go to johnforcongress.com. Thanks, George.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll cut it here. Send me all your social accounts. We'll put it in the show notes and everything so people can see it. And I'm going to try to have this out. Today's what, Tuesday? I'm going to try to have it out by Friday. All right?
Okay, God bless George. I really appreciate you. I'm so happy that you're so well organized and healthy and great and pastor. God bless you, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Welcome to Politics on the Prairie. presumptive #1 political podcast you know of. Join host George Deanhart and his special guest, Dr. Pamela.
I don't think that matters, but I think it's one person. So I'm gonna answer your question from my understanding of this young man. He's never been in trouble before. If you look at